So thanks for coming this afternoon. I'm going to do my best to step through really high level two of probably the most complex problems I've been a part of in the 10 years that I've been here. And then I'm going to touch just briefly on one that has not really even quite yet started, other than us signing some documents saying that we'll commit to it in the coming years. So the plan for today is just to talk a little bit about the 2028 Main Street Reconstruction. And then we'll talk about the 2029 reconstruction, and then I'm going to touch just a bit on the Main Street Bridge. We do have some time for questions at the end. I normally like to just ask questions as we go, so if you shoot your hand up, I'll probably encourage you to ask the question as we go along, so it has better context. So first on the Main Street reconstruction. So the city and the state, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, have entered into an intergovernmental agreement to reconstruct Main Street between Church and Market. The intention is for that to start in 2028. It seems crazy, but we were sitting in my office with our current Director of Public Works and our Assistant City Engineer who's here today, and we said, well, we should probably really plan for this reconstruction. Why miss the opportunity to have to make a really big impact? I'd rather not just put in a new roadway, let's see what other improvements we can make. And so 7 years before we ever started, we'll ever put a shovel in this ground, we started planning for the reconstruction of Main Street through the creation of the Main Street Task Force. I'm going to show you who represents that task force for you all here in the community in just a minute. But we're doing this project in conjunction with DOT because this Main Street is a connecting highway. And as Steve said, it was last constructed in 1967. And there's a variety of photos that float around from that time. So overall, this project is about $4.2 million just in infrastructure. That doesn't account for signs and lighting, but the roadway and the items under the ground is probably the easiest way to think of that. The state will cover 100% of expenses that you see listed on the screen. The way I kind of think of it in my head is the city will pay for the parking lane, but not the driving, and they'll pay for the driving lane. And they will pay for our storm sewer, but not our water or sanitary. So we will be covering 100% of the parking lanes. We'll also be doing as I just said, our water and sanitary improvements. That work for us is estimated around $1.6 million. And then we'll also be doing some upgrades to our street lighting, which I'm going to spend quite a bit of time today sharing with you some conceptual ideas that the task force has gone through. So in 2022, as you all know, the city invested around $200,000 in resurfacing of Main Street. We did a mill and overlay in our travel lanes, and then we did our resurfacing in the parking lanes. Never did we think those repairs would make it a long period of time. This was actually an expense that we had a split council on. I won't tell you what side of it I was on because I want you to like me for the rest of this presentation. But it does look really beautiful, and it will definitely improve the aesthetic of the downtown until the reconstruction in 28. So we created this task force. The Common Council approved us creating a task force, and it really was to do two things. One, it was to ensure that we provided well in advance during the reconstruction and post-reconstruction support to our downtown business and building owners. We wanted to make sure that we advocated for their needs early on and that we could plan ahead of time for things like an inability to access a front door of a building, as an example. And then we also knew that we wanted to be able to engage the community and what those redesign elements would look like beyond just the roadway. So some of you may have been, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago at a presentation at the Town Cinema where we went through some amenity design documents that we had produced over the last year. Those have largely allowed our Main Street Task Force to begin the planning that I'll show you in just a couple slides. So here on the screen is the task force members. The listing is from our city website. You'll see we have on it, obviously, elected officials, people from the RDA, someone from the Main Street program, someone from, I can't read it on my screen, someone from a downtown business owner, and then we have some members who also counsel us but don't vote, so our city staff, and then we also are lucky to have a DOT member on that task force as well. Since we created the task force, we've completed quite a few things. So we've done a downtown parking study. The city has actually been a part of, in my time here, 3 different parking studies in the downtown. We've done one on a very busy day, we've done one on the weekends, and we've done one during the day. So what do our parking lots and parking usage look like during the day? Those studies have largely told us that we have enough parking. I know there's people that don't believe that, but we do have enough parking in the downtown, even with the square. But it did say we may need to rearrange some of those parking spaces. So quantity-wise, we have enough. The location-wise, we could definitely use a bit more parking on the north and west side of the downtown, so where we're standing today. We've also created a comprehensive list of recommendations, and we've tiered those recommendations into a variety of different goals and implementation strategies as well. And then most recently, we've created liaisons for each of the blocks. So if you are a building or business owner in the downtown, someone from the Main Street Task Force on this list should have contacted you and said, hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm your liaison for the Main Street Reconstruction. That person is going to be the conduit for the building or business owner to get back to the task force with needs or ideas that they may have. One other thing that the task force has done is we have hired a professional planning consultant to prepare the downtown Main Street master plan. So we hired Vandalism and Associates in conjunction with iLevel Studio, and together we have spent many months guiding us through determinations on things like bump outs and parklets, entertainment areas, pocket parks, bubblers, benches, flower pots, gateway arches, things I'll show you in just a minute. So what I'm going to show you is all conceptual. The goal here is, despite my awareness, in October, we will be 30% done, the state will, with the design for 2028. So we had to have decisions this far in advance in order to have them incorporated into their design. And I don't know if there's anyone in the room from DOT or anyone that works with DOT, but I've said it to them, so I'll say it to you all too. They don't tell you that. They don't say, hey, 7 years before, we're going to ask you for design components. And so we were really fortunate that the council had the foresight to allocate to us this task force so that we could have a really strategic and comprehensive design. So with that in mind though, I'm going to show you many things. They're all conceptual. Please don't hold on to any one item or any one location. We will be taking all of these items back to the task force soon. They will kind of approve our final master plan. That will get wrapped into the design at DOT. So what you're looking at here is kind of an aerial view of the downtown. So we were looking from Washington Street just down to Sharp Corner Park. And there's a legend down in the corner. I'm going to step out because the one on the screen is very tiny. So what you'll see is a couple of items we work to include at various blocks. You'll see things like bump outs. So a bump out can be a few different things, but the one you'll see most often is a general rounding of an intersection. So rather than a curve, a traditional curve that makes like a right angle, it's a little bit more of a rounded turn that the intention is to slow down traffic. We have a couple of areas, obviously, for crosswalks. Our crosswalks in the downtown right now can be quite difficult to navigate, so that was something we wanted to improve. There's areas where we identified temporary parklets. You can look to the purple dots on 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. The state will not allow parklets on Main Street proper. So parklets became really popular in cities like ours during COVID when people ate outside quite a bit. They've obviously been on places like State Street for many, many years. But we do have a little bit more flexibility if we put those parklets on side streets, because those are within our purview and our control. So why we like temporary better is buildings, they turn over the course of time, and we like the idea that just because there's a restaurant there today doesn't necessarily mean there will be a restaurant there 25 years from now. And so the temporary nature of those was more appealing to us. There's going to be areas for things like block ID features. I'll show you what those mean in just a minute. And then at the beginning of near Water Street, and then you'll see it again around 7th Street, there's concepts of things like a gateway arch or pylons that would be on the roadway. I can show you a few examples of that as well. Believe it or not, a bubbler, even post-pandemic, still comes up from the community on ideas of things they want to see in the downtown. So we made sure to include one of those, and then you'll see areas on this map as well for kiosks, bike racks, different types of signaled intersections that we perhaps don't have right now. We will likely end up seeing some reversal of some of the one-way streets we have in the downtown. A lot of those one-way streets started in the 70s when the popular thing to do was drive downtown and stay downtown. And so we know at that time it helped dump traffic onto some of the side streets, and we perhaps don't have quite that need in the downtown today. So I really like this photo, and if I'll break it now, I believe this is Uptown by the looks of the building in the back. It's just a building that was selected, so I don't want anyone, I don't know if Ashley's here, but don't worry, like this is just, again, a concept to show what we're looking at in terms of a redesigned downtown. So knowing that we're going to be tearing up sidewalks and roadways, we wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to have spaces where people wanted to stay. The 400 on the sign there is one of the block indicators that you saw on the previous map. We worked really hard to come up with conceptual designs even. A final design will look different than what you see here today, but even a conceptual design that's both modern and a nod to the historical nature of our downtown. You see some floor level or road level flower planters. We know that it's very difficult to maintain the ones that are up high. And then the thing that I probably love the most is street trees. If you look at our downtown and you look at any other downtown around us, one of the things we miss the most is just something to soften the aesthetic of our large historic buildings. And so something like street trees appropriately placed so that we can still maintain them and clear snow efficiently is something that we spent a lot of time focused on. The next one I'm going to show you are the concepts of gateway arches. So I know on our task force there's mixed feelings. I read an email right before I came here from a task force member saying, I don't quite love any of these, but I think it just gives a glimpse into what we're looking towards. So I'm sure the French Nouveau, or whatever it is, has some indication for a design person. I don't have any clue what that means, but you'll see there's just a couple of different designs for us to choose from. These, again, are on that map, are conceptually placed at Washington Street, and then perhaps another, if we feel it necessary or possible, around, I believe, 7th Street. So these are just opportunities for people to see a really big marker for our downtown. I can say I think one thing that we've all on the task force have committed to feeling comfortable with is the brick bases. We try in anything we do to incorporate the Cream City brick, even in our city entry signs. And I know even in this building, we tried to make sure that there were colors that were very similar to that. Our task force is split on the idea of a gateway arch or these roadside pylons. Again, don't get hung up on the design in particular, but I hope it just gives everyone an idea that we aren't just looking to rebuild a road and put in new sidewalks. We're really looking to make the destination that this downtown already is more recognizable to people that are coming to visit here. So roadside pylons would just be what they sound like, one pylon on each side of the roadway. That would just be another gateway feature. The next couple of slides have just varying examples of different sign concepts. So we know that we've done, it's probably almost 8 years ago now when I was on the Common Council with some of you in this room, we created the city's first brand and put that brand all over the community. One thing we did was city entry signs. Another was some of these downtown signs. So what you're seeing here are directional signs, outlying area signage, so signage that would be just beyond Main Street, banners with some of the lamp posts. I do believe our lamp posts are selected. That was something we had to have incorporated into the 30% design. And then some examples of two-sided kiosks. So we were intentional about including the city's brand standards. So you're going to see our brand colors, and then we also have accent colors, which is like a variation of orange. I know that pops up every now and again. And then also, obviously, the logo and our font that the brand is in. So this one is an example of the block numbering signage. I am a big fan of it. I don't know what it is. Like the first time I saw it on a rendering, I was like, that is cool. Like the base of the pole is obviously very historic, and the top is a little bit more modern. I think it strikes a really nice balance, and it kind of incorporates in the Sharp Corner Park letters too. So this one has always been a favorite of mine. We probably wouldn't place these at every block. You know, it would be a strategically placed item if it's an item that ends up making the cut. And then you'll also see some parking signage. So one of the things that was identified in that study is while we have enough parking, we don't identify it very well. I think there's parking lots that I don't even know are the city's, and I should. And so certainly visitors don't know that they're city parking lots. And so we know we have to make some updates, not only to the signage, but to the aesthetics of the parking lots that we have to make them appear a little bit more inviting and to make sure that people can find them a bit easier. I personally think these parking signs are really great. I really like these as well. We are a bike and pedestrian friendly community, which means we do the best we can to have our new roadways be friendly to both bikes and pedestrians, which means you need bike racks. And if you're gonna have a bike rack, you might as well make it look aesthetically pleasing. So these are some examples of bike racks. You'll see the seating and the planters and the trash receptacles look very similar to what we have. I think they might be identical is what we're suggesting, because the ones that we have are in fairly good condition, and so we want to make sure that if we can match those, that we do. And then this other photo of the mid-block seating area is a bit obscure, but what we're looking at is a concept of having mid-block, so picture the entire downtown, kind of in the middle point, a place where you can stop. So we have Sharp Corner Park, we have the town square, we have the library, we have businesses that are putting in more and more outdoor seating. But where can we have someone kind of midway stop and hang out a little bit? I haven't talked to Matt, but this is conceptualized to be outside the theater, which I think is really cool. So what these different items here are layouts. You can stare at them closely if you'd like. I don't know them very well myself, but the point is we're conceptualizing a space that will get people to hang around a little bit. And hang around in that area because we do have a pretty decent concentration of restaurants in that area as well, so people can wait for tables if they need to, or wait for movies to start. This next slide is just an overall streetscape palette. So there's no rhyme or reason to any one design here picked, at least not for me. Perhaps our architect who put it together would say these are his favorite items. But this just kind of gives an overall picture of some of the design elements that we're looking to incorporate into the reconstruction of the downtown of Main Street in 2028. So once this master plan is complete, as I said, we'll send this off to DOT and they will incorporate it into the design. It really then will be the responsibility of the Common Council to fund these items. I would say if not all, nearly all of these items don't even have a cost share with the state project. And so we will have to put these items into our 5-year capital plan and into our budgeting process to ensure that they can be implemented. So I have less than 2 years left in this job, and this isn't happening until 2028. So I don't have a say in how this gets implemented, but I sure hope it does, because it's a really well thought out plan that we've spent years creating and soliciting feedback from all of you and putting it inside of a document that will hopefully allow us to responsibly and incrementally improve the aesthetics in the downtown when we improve the roadway. A couple of other items, and I kind of touched on these earlier, so just kind of on the last thing with the 2028 reconstruction, which I should have specified will run from Church to basically Sharp Corner Park. We have been doing a lot of communication to businesses, but that's going to be a really key element for us as we move into this next phase. Once we have this conceptual design done, that's when we'll start talking to our downtown building and business owners around, we have talked some, but talking more seriously around entrances and needs. I know there's already discussions happening at the Main Street program about similar signage that people can have, likely on the backs of their buildings. We've done, I think, 2 or 3 presentations from different from Main Street folks at the state, from the DOT, on things they've seen work really well in downtowns like ours and things that haven't. And so we're doing our best to make sure that when this day ultimately comes, that we are as prepared as we can be as a government and our business community and residents as well. I've talked about the liaisons, but we're also doing a newsletter. So if you are a downtown building or business owner, you should be getting a newsletter, I think, quarterly.
We have another one coming out next month.
Okay, so one will be coming out next month. That's going to be the best mechanism to stay in the loop on big picture progress. We're talking about a road that's going to be constructed in 5 years, right? So there's a lot of time between then and now, but we want to make sure that we don't lose sight of it. Immediately following the 2028 project, actually when the 2028 project design completes, the state will start the design for the 2029 project. And this runs essentially from Sharp Corner Park to Tivoli Island in that area. We've already been before the Public Works Commission and made decisions like, do we want parking on both sides of that section of the roadway? So we know that we have signed an intergovernmental agreement. This again is a connecting highway, so we'll again have those same cost splits. And the state will lead that project as well. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about before I answer any questions that you have is a bit of an update on the Main Street Bridge. For those of you that haven't had the pleasure of listening me speak about the Main Street Bridge, I'll just highlight a few things. So the bridge was originally designed or planned to be reconstructed in 2026. And we, because of the condition of the bridge, have been advocating quite strongly to get that moved up. So we got the bridge moved up to 2025 with what they call advanceable potential to 2024. We at the city have been working with our eyes solely set on 2024. And I'll tell you, I mean, to be completely frank, this bridge is a complete mess. It is a chronic problem. We in engineering and I probably deal with this bridge multiple times a week, every week, since you saw those Jersey barriers go up. There is not, we have a running joke, and it's often far too true. Every Friday around 2 o'clock, Andrew or Janelle will knock on my door because we have another problem on the Main Street Bridge. So I hesitate to share much with you all today because by Friday, before the homecoming parade, I'll have a different problem on the Main Street Bridge, and what I share with you today won't be representative of the current situation anymore. But I want to be able to give you a little bit of insight into where we're at. So we've been successful in getting the bridge timing moved up. We have done nearly constant exploratory work. I call them pirate missions because at this point you have to be a little lighthearted about this, right? It is an incredibly time-consuming, often losing project. So I call them our pirate missions. You'll see them if you go in front of the Two Rivers building. It's areas of concrete we've had to tear up and literally look in the ground to see what's there, or it's the sidewalk section we had to remove on the Bank First side. We've had to continue to go in and answer questions for the DOT. That exploratory work is costly, several $100,000s worth of costly. And that was part of our pushing to get this bridge moved up. We do not have the financial resources to keep waiting for a bridge years from now because the maintenance of it is so expensive. All along during this kind of exploration time, we also are actively meeting on a weekly basis with the DOT on the design. So we have to design a bridge. We have to get that design run past you all. We have to get it approved by the State Historical Society. It has to get approved by a federal entity. I mean, there's a lot of design time that goes into building a new bridge. And then we've also had a lot of discussions about extras. So I really wanted to underlight the Main Street Bridge. I mean, it seems like a really great opportunity to have beautiful lighting. As it stands right now in the time that I'm here, that likely will not happen. Just the design for the electrical for that was around $50,000, let alone the implementation. And because we're spending our money on this exploration type work, we don't have funds available anymore to do these types of aesthetic improvements that make a whole lot of sense to do. We've also been having discussions around decorative light posts, just a variety of different extra items that don't actually go into the nuts and bolts of a bridge redesign. I said we've had a substantial amount of complexities. The current condition of the bridge, I believe, would show people that. The governor was here some time ago. I walked him back to his vehicle. I walked him over that bridge, not even on purpose, but I'm glad it happened that way. Walked him over the bridge because then I had to explain to him why we were in the situation we were in. He got back in his vehicle, and not even 10 minutes later, I was with Melissa Lampy, and she said, "Hey, I haven't seen this part of the town square yet. Can we go see it?" So we walked down there and we listened to a massive part of the bridge fall in the river. So that particular item is what led to us having to put the plate on the bridge. And if you're in manufacturing, securing the appropriate measurement of a steel plate on a moment's notice is not an easy hill to climb. And so that's what I mean. We've had just repetitive, consistent complexities with this bridge with the condition that it's currently in. Two other big problems. This bridge, as it's designed right now, when it was built in 1931, it was designed to be connected to the basement of the Masonic Temple. And it's also connected on the northwest side to the former foundation of the building that was there. I call it Bank First front yard. It's like if you picture the grassy area. So under the water, under these buildings, under the bridge, this building is connected to two buildings, which is a big problem. That problem has consumed an incredible amount of time and resources. The Bank First side is certainly complex in its own nature, but something that we feel we've got a pretty good handle on. I shouldn't say that out That's a couple $100,000 project. Just on Monday, we went to our finance committee with the bidding responses for the disconnection of the Masonic Temple, and that cost was double the cost that we had estimated for it. So one of the other complexities is just the sheer cost of this project. The bridge itself, I believe, is $4.2 million. We worked very closely with Senator Jagler, who's been an incredible partner for us in this piece in particular, and Representative Penterman joined in as well. We were successful in getting an earmark in the state biennial budget for $2 million to disconnect this bridge from this building, which is if you're in government, these things don't happen anymore. So it was a real light shine on the intricate detail and uniqueness of the problem that we have at this bridge. So we were grateful to be able to be in a position to have the money we believed we needed to disconnect the bridge. And it's now a public record. We've spoken to everyone who needs to know. The bids for that disconnection came in at $4 million. So we're building a $4.2 million bridge, and it's $4 million just to disconnect the bridge from the building. Not only do we have to disconnect it, but when you disconnect a massive structure from another large structure, you have to ensure that structure is stable. So we have had a very difficult, tumultuous, ever-changing road with the Main Street Bridge, all while we have a really, really excellent building owner. Bill Lindborg owns that building now. He's been really helpful to us in allowing us in the building. Just with the age of the building, every time we go in there, we have to be worried about lead or asbestos. I mean, we're disrupting basement floors to look for foundation and bedrock, and so we've been fortunate that he's been very very kind to us. And then we also have the potential of a really excellent development project that wants to be at that site. And so we've had a lot of things kind of playing in, and ultimately I think the question will be from you all is, when is the bridge going to happen? And last week I would have told you a different day, and today I'm here to tell you I sincerely don't know. We met yesterday afternoon, put together 4 new potential paths for this thing to go on. 2 of those paths get us there, so that this bridge starts in April, and 2 of those paths don't. 3 of those paths involve the state and federal government, and I am, fortunate to have really good relationships with the people who represent us here. But they're only one person, right, in these bigger picture government decisions that would ultimately have to be made. So I wish I could tell you with certainty that we will be constructing the bridge this spring. Up until last week, I would have said we're pretty good. Like we're set to start our work by the end of this month. Actually, I had a mayor meetup last week, and I bet you I did say that. We're set to start our work at the end of this month, and we'll start that'll end by March, and then the bridge will start in April, and it's supposed to finish by November. But after receiving those bids and being in the position that we're in now, I can't say that. What I can say though is we'll know soon. So in order to keep this project on track, the state will bid their project in November. And so they won't bid that project if they don't believe that it's going to be able to be constructed this spring. So we should know soon. The 2028 Main Street Reconstruction is on track. We know that because the designers and project managers for the bridge are also working on this project, and so we have the opportunity at least to stay in good contact with them. And then 2029 is still looking on track as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Yes?
Has the DOT given you any idea how long it will take to construct the bridge?
Yeah, so under normal conditions, well, even under our conditions, our anticipation was to begin in April and finish by November. That's what we've been informed of. Yes?
While the construction's going on, so I had an experience in one of my buildings that they put a sidewalk in and a crack went right through the window. Who's responsible to repair that? I had to replace the glass.
I think we should probably talk about that separate. I'm not familiar with the issue or the project that would have caused it, but if that happened, we can chat after.
Okay.
Or you can touch base with Andrew as well.
Okay.
Yes?
Is the city seeking alternate bids for their?
I should have touched on that. That's a good question. Yeah, so what this entails, and there's probably some of you in this room that have complete idea what I'm talking about, and I should say, I only know what to say, I don't actually know what it means. But what this essentially entails is we would, in disconnecting the bridge, we have to stabilize the Masonic Temple building, so we would be performing something called or they would be performing something called jet grouting, which is, in my mind, drilling holes and filling those holes with cement so that you restabilize the structure. There aren't many people that do that. So when we put this project out to bid, we have something called a pre-construction meeting. I believe we had 2 bidders appear at that meeting, which when you're doing a specialized project like this, it's not overly shocking, and when you're bidding it in the fall, when work is largely scheduled, it's not overly surprising either. And then we, I believe, had people submitted questions, we responded to those. That led to us receiving 1 bid. So that 1 bidder, if I'm that 1 bidder, you know, you're looking around the room and you're assuming you're the only person that's about to bid, so that 2 million goes this way. And then when you realize that this is a pretty substantially risky project, you're building into that quote some risk, right? You know, your insurance is only gonna cover so much, your insurance is gonna cost so much. And so we don't, and the other kind of general rule of thumb is once you publicly bid a project, the cost never goes down. Because now that number is out there, right? Like people know, it's the same thing with the Riverside Park bathrooms. The more times we rebid this project, the more expensive the project will get, because people know what the base cost is and they inflate it. So we don't see the value in rebidding it. The state, as of yesterday and even this morning maybe, wants us to rebid it. We could do that, but I don't think it's gonna get us anywhere different, because there's 1 bidder. If we had, you know, a few to choose from and they all were over budget, they maybe would dwindle their number down to try to be more competitive, but that's not the situation that we're in right now. So we're working through a few different options at this point. One of my goals is to be able to use this earmark to buy the building, or to have some ownership perhaps, to see if that could help us. But the state won't, at this point, allow us to use the earmark for that purpose either. It's very complex. That's why I told Steve he could call me the okayest mayor again, because this week I'm just feeling okay. Like we can't quite forge all the way in on this one the way we need to. I saw another hand when yours went up. Yes?
So I'm probably the only person that's thinking this, but what about like the safety of the bridge?
Oh no, you're not the only person. Are you kidding? Who else was worried about the safety of the bridge? I worry about it every week.
Okay, because like I drive over there a few times a day. you
Yeah.
know, And then when I hear like chunks are dropping.
Yeah.
And bridge safety overall, and
Yeah.
then
You're
like, we're not the only community that's facing that.
Yeah.
So like, is there a protocol or a point
Yes.
at which somebody says enough is enough, nobody
Yeah.
can use this anymore?
What I should have touched on, and I think if I look back, it's in the slides, because Andrew and I added it to the slides like an hour before I came here. So I know it's there and I just didn't say it. In any bridge, there's a typical inspection rotation. So I think it's normally on a good bridge like 2 years. Every 2 years we inspect bridges. We just got 3 inspection reports this morning for some of the bridges we have in Riverside Park, for example. Bridges get rated on a scale of 1 to 100, stop me if I'm ever getting this wrong, and I think up to 60 they're eligible for rehabilitation. Once you get below 60, it's a reconstruction. So Katy Street Bridge was like a 62 or a 63, something like that, so that's why that one's getting rehabbed. Once you get below that number and you need to be reconstructed and you're seeing the level of deterioration, that 2 years slims down to 1 year, that 1 year slims down to 6 months. We're at 6 months. So every 6 months we pay for that bridge to get re-inspected. We just got a re-inspection report in August, and it said that it's still safe for the traffic that moves over it now. So we can't bring that weight limit off. We have the plate there still. But it did indicate that we have continued, what is the word, delamination?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. The concrete chunks falling off. Continue. So please be assured, we inspect that bridge visibly every week. We have someone who's always observing it, but we don't have on staff a structural engineer. We only have civil engineers like Andrew and Jane Ellen. But they are putting eyes on the bridge every single week. I walk by the bridge quite often, and then when we observe something, we give it to our inspectors, and then they determine if they need to come back or not. So the take home here is the bridge is safe for travel. If you get stopped on the bridge, you're gonna be okay. I was stopped on the bridge and like, this is why people feel weird. I looked around and it's like, oh, there's a lot of stuff on this bridge. But please be assured, I shouldn't joke about it because it is happening. You know, infrastructure is literally crumbling and failing throughout this country. But this one is we pay very close attention to. So every week we visibly take a look at it. If we see something, we say it to our structural inspector. And then every 6 months we're getting a report out. Now, I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. That would have been a big miss on my part. Yes?
With the design of like the planters and the seats, directories and stuff, are you guys putting some thoughts into like vandalism and stuff on that, how to make it,
Yeah.
because that's a problem with planter.
Just watching Christine smile and right behind you because we've had people vandalizing the square lately. So in anything we put in, we think about vandalism. We think about, could they pick this up and throw it? Because they do, you know, the benches land in the Rock River. Would they mistaken this for a garbage can and put their garbage in the flower pots? Because they do. They do. So yes, is the short answer to your question. But we won't ever completely curb that. But it is something that we're considering when we put things at level that they can be engaged with versus up high. We do have like the ability to have a really nice graffiti cleaner, for lack of a better term. I don't actually technically know what it's called, but for example, we're gonna put it on social media soon. Someone in this community has children that are taking the berries at the square and writing all over the pavers with them. So if you see something, say something, like call the non-emergency number if you see kids doing that, or if you feel comfortable approaching them, say it to them yourselves. We can't have nice things, you know, if we can't take care of them, but we also have to be mindful that we're not gonna completely control human behavior. And I think we have an internal leadership team and a council right now that believes in a balanced approach to having nice amenities, knowing a trade-off at times will be the improper use of those amenities.
Have you thought of with that, even though we're taking the modern approach to everything, maybe adding like an artistic view to it? So like how downtown Watertown is now with all the different paintings and stuff like that, even on the side of draggers, like adding that in touch to maybe not so much encourage the graffiti, but having that art there, I feel like would stop a lot of people. If that's something you've considered.
Modern art that's the category it's called, and it is in the plans that we've worked on. In the ones we presented at the theater and in the one now, it's more of a call out for a space to do public art or modern art. But I want to be careful. I think what we're suggesting in the design aesthetics is a balance. Like if there's something that looks modern, if you look closely, you're going to find something that looks historic. Melissa Lampe sits on our task force, and if you know her, you know there's not a chance that we're making this downtown only modern, which is good. That's why we have her. We need people like her to make sure that we have a good balance. What else? Yes?
If this one's too detailed, we can sidebar,
Sure.
but the bridge project, I'm wondering what buying that building, like what part of the problem buying that building solves? You made mention of.
Well, anytime that we would have control over something, it's going to open up different opportunities for us. So we stay in pretty close contact with the owner of that building. I think he's briefed nearly weekly. He called me since I've been sitting here. And I know that what I've heard him say is, you know, he wants to make sure that we do what's in the best interest of this downtown, like he's proven himself to do many times. And so that's where we continually kind of level ourselves up to, is we have to do what's in the best interest of this entire downtown. The last thing any of us wants is to have what happened on 2nd Street Bridge happen here. It would be incredibly detrimental, and we've been working very, very hard to do our best to make sure that this bridge stays open and passable safely until it can be reconstructed. What else? Take that and run with it. It's the easiest part I've ever had. Yes?
Is parking still gonna be available? I know at one point they were saying they were gonna narrow Main Street, but now there's still gonna be parking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like on the roadway?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good.
I'm unaware of us removing.
Oh, I thought somebody was saying they were gonna narrow.
No, I think right now we're in the midst of the city budget. In the budget that I presented for next year, it included money for a transportation network evaluation. That's just the fancy way of saying the one-way street study to determine what can be flipped back. I think if you in transition between one and two-way streets and having parking on both sides, I think some of that is the only time we've really talked about an impact to parking that I can think of. But even that doesn't necessarily mean that we would lose parking. It just means that that would definitely, you'll hear that get discussed if we start turning one-way streets into two-way streets. And I don't even know why that is, but I'm not gonna pretend like I do. But I know they've talked about it. All right, any last questions? I wanna just take a minute to thank my city team. Andrew and Jane Ellen have been working so incredibly hard at these projects, all while we do, the things that keep the city moving all the time. And Mason has been leading our task force, and so I asked them both to be here today. I want you all to leave knowing that we are doing everything that we can to ensure that when we're investing funds in this downtown, that they aren't just hitting and checking the box for an infrastructure improvement. We're doing our best to really capitalize on, for me, like a once in a generation, probably, improvement to this roadway. And then when it comes to the bridge, I've said to anyone that's ever heard me speak, I am not a politician. I am here to serve this community for this period of time, and so I tell people the truth. And I wish I could have a rosier picture for you on the Main Street Bridge, and I'm confident one day I will. I feel incredibly confident that by the time this is all done, we will have a reconstructed, safe bridge, and we will have an incredible development in that space. I feel confident about that. But I'm also confident in knowing we're gonna have a lot of bumps before we get there, because this bridge has proven to be nothing except that. So as you talk with your employees, your families, your friends, I would just encourage you to carry that message. Yes, it seems slow. I mean, it seems so slow, right? But it is a chronic item of work for us. And there is never a day or a time that we don't think about that bridge and ensuring that it can be as safe as it can be and as open as it can be, so that this downtown of 80-some unique storefronts can be as thriving as they have been. So I just want people to know that we always have our eyes on that and that we're doing our very best for you. But in full transparency, it is a little bit of a roller coaster on the Main Street Bridge right now. And I feel really solid about where we're gonna be come 2028 for that reconstruction. So if you have questions as you go along, and if you're a downtown building or business owner, please reach out to your liaison. If you don't know who they are, tell Mason, because that means we haven't done a good job of making sure you know who that is. And then as you have questions about any projects, you can always reach out to me. If you live inside the city, I always respond to you. Or you can obviously reach out to your alderperson. They are staying in the loop on these projects as well. So I appreciate you guys taking the time. This was really important for Alderperson Moldenhauer, who this was his idea to make sure that we came back before the community one last time and said this is kind of what we're aiming and aligning towards. So I just really appreciate everyone taking their lunch hour to learn about the Main Street Bridge and the reconstruction of Main Street. So thank you guys.